Have you ever caught yourself looking at someone on television or in a magazine and thinking, how on earth does he look so young? That's exactly what many of us said when Tom Cruise, at 62 years old, appeared on screen recently looking as though time had politely stepped aside for him. His energy, his face, even the way he carries himself, it's hard to believe he's not still in his mid-30s. And it sparks a thought, doesn't it? If he can look that way at his age, what does that mean for the rest of us? Is it just Hollywood trickery, or is there something real we can take away for our own lives? That curiosity is what brings us together today for this discussion on video topic. I remember a gentleman named Richard who came into my clinic some years ago. He was 64, a retired engineer, quiet and practical by nature. He looked at me and said, "Doc, I just don't feel like the man I used to be. I'm tired, my skin looks older than I'd like, and I swear I aged 10 years in the last 5. His wife had shown him a photo of Tom Cruise in a magazine, and he chuckled, "I don't need to look like a movie star, but I'd like to look and feel like me again." I knew exactly what he meant. At that moment, Richard wasn't asking for vanity. He was asking for vitality. He wanted the spark that makes life feel full again. And it's here that the conversation around aging, food, and daily choices becomes deeply important. My name is Dr. Nolan Easton, and for over 30 years, I've had the privilege of guiding men through the twists and turns of aging. As a men's health specialist, I've seen firsthand how small, daily decisions accumulate into big differences. We often think of aging as an inevitable decline, but the truth is, so much of it is influenced by habits. What we put into our bodies, how we move, how we rest, and even how we think about ourselves. Tom Cruise might be blessed with good genetics and a team of trainers, but I can tell you from my medical experience that avoiding the wrong foods and embracing the right habits plays a bigger role than most people realize. Let me pause here for a moment. If you're listening right now and thinking, "That's me. I want to feel younger, stronger, more alive," I want to reassure you that this conversation is for you. The reason I share these insights isn't to compare you to a Hollywood actor, but to remind you that it is never too late to regain control. You can begin today at 60, 70, even 80 to make choices that give you more energy, better sleep, and a body that feels capable. And if that's something you'd like for yourself, I invite you to stay with me. And before we go any further, would you do me a kind favor? If this message resonates with you, please press the like button, subscribe to this channel, and tap the bell icon so you never miss our weekly talks. And tell me in the comments, just a simple yes or no, do you believe it's still possible to feel decades younger after 60? I'll be reading your responses personally because your feedback helps me bring you the guidance you truly need. Now back to Richard. When he first came in, he was eating the way many retirees do. Quick meals, easy snacks, plenty of processed convenience foods. He loved pastries with his morning coffee and had a habit of grabbing packaged chips in the evening while watching television. These didn't seem like much at the time, but they were silently adding up. He complained of sluggishness, joint aches, and poor sleep. His skin looked dull and he had more belly fat than he liked. The remarkable part was how quickly things began to shift once we identified and removed just a few foods that were secretly aging him. Here's something important I want you to take away. The foods we avoid are sometimes even more powerful than the foods we add. Think about it like tending a garden. You can plant all the flowers you want, but if weeds are choking the soil, nothing will thrive. For Richard and for countless men and women I've worked with, learning what to avoid was the key that unlocked the door to feeling young again. This is why when we talk about Tom Cruise looking 35 at 62, it isn't just about exercise or fancy treatments, it's about discipline in avoiding the silent culprits that accelerate aging from the inside out. I'll share this with you in a gentle but honest way. The foods that work against us are often the ones that taste good, comfort us, and feel harmless in small amounts. But over time, they drain our energy, damage our circulation, and age our skin. Richard didn't realize that his afternoon sweet treats were spiking his blood sugar and stressing his body. He didn't know that the processed oils in his evening snacks were inflaming his joints. He only saw the result, a man who felt older than his years.
Once he began replacing those habits with nourishing alternatives, he found himself waking up with more clarity, less stiffness, and, much to his surprise, skin that looked fresher. As I guide you through this journey, I want you to know that none of this is about perfection. You don't have to live like a monk or give up every pleasure. But, just as Tom Cruise has shared in interviews that he avoids certain foods to maintain his vitality, you and I can take practical, realistic steps in our daily lives. These small decisions, made consistently, are what build a body and mind that resist premature aging. Richard's story continues to inspire me because, within 6 months, his wife came back to my clinic alongside him. She pulled me aside and whispered, "Doctor, he's got that sparkle back. He's laughing again. He looks younger and I feel like I got my husband back." That transformation wasn't about chasing Hollywood perfection. It was about reclaiming health and confidence. And that, my friends, is available to each of us, regardless of age. So, as we begin this conversation, I encourage you to think about your own daily choices. What foods are giving you life, and which ones might be slowly taking it away? If Tom Cruise at 62 can look 35, what would it feel like for you to look in the mirror and see more vitality in your own reflection? Would it change the way you move through your day, the way you engage with your loved ones, or even the way you think about your future? These are the questions that matter, and they are the reason I am here, sharing these insights with you today. And as we move forward in this discussion, I'll be weaving together both medical understanding and real-life examples from my years of practice, so that you can not only see the science, but also feel the hope. Because hope, after all, is the first step in transformation. If Richard could find it, and if countless men and women I've worked with could find it, then I promise you can too.
When Richard first began making changes, he told me something that stayed with me. "Doc, it feels like I'm taking back the steering wheel of my own life." That's such a powerful image, isn't it? So many of us hit our 60s and 70s and begin to feel like passengers, carried along by aches, fatigue, and the slow wear and tear of age. But when you learn what to put on your plate and what to leave off, you begin to steer again. That's what I want for you. And it's exactly why Tom Cruise at 62, looking decades younger, matters. Not because we want to copy him, but because his choices remind us that it's possible to age differently than most expect. Now, here's what I've noticed over my 3 decades of practice. There are 3 foods that stand out again and again as silent culprits. I won't name them just yet, but I want you to understand the principle. These foods do more than add a few pounds. They speed up aging at the cellular level. They rob you of energy, dull your mind, and make your skin look older. Richard, unknowingly, had all 3 in his daily routine. It wasn't until we peeled them away that his body could breathe again, so to speak. Let me tell you how his transformation unfolded. The very first week, we focused only on replacing his morning pastry. That pastry had been his companion for years. He said it felt like a sweet hug with coffee. But after I explained how refined sugars drive inflammation and prematurely wrinkle skin, he agreed to swap it for a hearty bowl of steel-cut oats topped with berries. It won't be the same, he admitted. Yet by the end of the week, his energy was steadier and his afternoon crash disappeared. He laughed and said, "Doc, I used to nod off around 2 p.m. Now I'm still going strong." Small change, big difference. And that's a lesson for all of us. Sometimes, avoiding aging isn't about adding expensive supplements or extreme regimens. It's about pulling out the hidden thieves from your diet one by one. These thieves steal youth quietly, the way termites eat away at wood without you noticing until it's weakened. The day Richard stopped feeding those thieves, his body began repairing itself. I want to pause here and speak directly to you. Think of your own morning routine. Is there something you eat out of habit that may not be serving you? Maybe it's a sugary pastry like Richard. Maybe it's white bread toast. Or maybe it's that sweetened creamer in your coffee. If you can relate, just drop a yes in the comments. If not, put a no. I read those comments carefully because it helps me know what's on your plate and what changes might matter most in your life. And if you haven't already, please remember to like this video, subscribe, and click the bell icon. That way you'll always have these conversations waiting for you, just like a trusted friend checking in. Now, the second big shift Richard made came in the evening. He loved his potato chips, said it was part of his relaxation ritual while watching television. But processed oils and excess salt are notorious for stiffening blood vessels and accelerating heart problems. I explained to him that what he thought was harmless snacking was actually aging his circulation, robbing him of energy and even affecting his skin's glow. He hesitated at first, but I suggested roasted chickpeas with herbs as an alternative. Crunchy, savory, satisfying, but with protein and fiber instead of toxic oils. Within a month, his wife told me she noticed his face looked less puffy. He himself said, "Doc, I feel lighter, even though I didn't drop a lot of weight yet." This brings us to an important point. Aging gracefully isn't only about the number on the scale. It's about how your body functions day to day. Energy, sleep, digestion, circulation, mood, all of these matter. When Richard replaced those chips, he wasn't just cutting calories. He was telling his body, "I choose life over slow decline." And his body responded. The third shift came later, but it was perhaps the most profound. Richard had a sweet tooth, and ice cream was his late-night indulgence. He said it helped him relax before bed. But here's what was really happening. The sugar and dairy combination was spiking inflammation, worsening his joint pain, and disrupting his sleep. He'd wake up groggy, and he thought it was just age. When we switched him to a small bowl of frozen berries with a dollop of unsweetened Greek yogurt, he was skeptical. Yet within 2 weeks, his joint stiffness eased, and he began sleeping through the night. One morning he told me, "Doc, I woke up rested for the first time in years." Stories like Richard's show us that aging is not fixed, it's fluid. Every decision we make is a brushstroke on the canvas of our later years. When we choose wisely, the picture is vibrant and strong. When we don't, the picture fades more quickly than it should. Tom Cruise's discipline in avoiding aging foods may be strict, but the principles behind it are simple and applicable to us all. Avoid what inflames, what stiffens, and what drains, and you allow your body to keep its spark longer. Let me bring this closer to you. Have you noticed how certain meals make you feel sluggish, while others leave you light and energetic? That's your body speaking. It's never too late to listen more closely. Just like Richard, you can experiment gently. Remove one culprit, replace it with something nourishing, and observe. That's the path to looking younger naturally, without expensive tricks. I'll leave you with this thought before we continue. Aging well isn't about denying yourself joy, it's about choosing joys that also serve your body. Tom Cruise at 62 still has energy to run, leap, and smile like a man decades younger. But for you, it could be as simple as walking with your grandchildren without tiring, waking up with a clear mind, or seeing a fresher reflection in the mirror. That's the reward of avoiding those 3 silent aging foods. And remember, Richard started small. You can too. One change at a time, one step closer to feeling young again.
When Richard returned to my office about 3 months into his journey, I almost didn't recognize him. He walked in with a bounce in his step. His face looked brighter, and his handshake was firm again. His wife was right behind him, smiling ear to ear, and she whispered, "He's even started choking again, doctor." That's when I knew this wasn't just about food. It was about life coming back into a man who had thought his best days were behind him. And that's exactly what Video Topic is all about. Avoiding those foods that steal our youth, so we can live with vitality, no matter our age. Now, here's the beautiful truth. Once Richard got rid of those 3 foods, his body didn't just stop aging prematurely, it began reversing some of the wear and tear. His skin gained color, his energy lasted longer through the day, and he even started going on longer walks. His wife said he was humming around the house again, something she hadn't heard in years. It reminds me of what I've often said: aging is not just about the number of candles on the cake, it's about the spark inside. Remove what dims that spark, and suddenly it shines again. And let's talk about why this happens. You see, our bodies are remarkable machines. They want to heal. They want to thrive, even at 60, 70, or 80 years old. But when we fill them with foods that inflame and damage, it's like pouring sand into the gears of a clock. It slows, it grinds, it wears down faster. Richard didn't need a miracle. He just needed to stop pouring sand into his gears. Once he did, his body began running more smoothly than it had in years. And you can experience the same shift. I want to pause here and ask you something personal. Have you ever had that moment when you catch yourself in the mirror and think, who is that person staring back at me? I don't feel like that on the inside. If you've had that moment, type yes in the comments. If not, type no. I read every response because I want to know how you see yourself, how you feel, and how I can guide you better. And if you haven't yet, please remember to like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. Every time you do, you're helping me reach more people who need to hear this message. Now, one of the things Richard admitted was that he used to believe it was too late. He said, "Doc, I thought after 60 you just accept decline." But the truth is, decline only feels inevitable when you don't know what's driving it. Once he learned about these foods, it was like finding the leak in a boat. You patch it, and suddenly you're floating strong again. I can't tell you how many men and women I've treated who felt too old to change, only to discover that their bodies were waiting, almost begging for the chance to heal. What really struck me was how Richard's confidence returned. He began dressing a little sharper, fixing his hair differently, even smiling more in photographs. His wife said, "He's standing taller, like the man I married." And this is the hidden gift of taking care of yourself. It's not just the body that changes, but the spirit. When you look in the mirror and see vitality, you carry yourself with more pride. You engage with loved ones more warmly, and you start to believe in the future again. I often tell my patients that Tom Cruise isn't superhuman. He doesn't have a magic pill. What he has is discipline. He avoids the foods that take more than they give. And when you do the same, you realize just how forgiving your body can be. Richard discovered that his joints weren't doomed to ache forever. His belly wasn't destined to keep expanding. His sleep wasn't condemned to restless nights. By removing 3 foods, he gave his body the chance to repair itself, and it did. Think about this for yourself. What would it mean to wake up with more energy, to move through your day without dragging, to look at your skin and see more glow, less sag? Would it make you want to travel more, to play more with your grandkids, or simply to enjoy your reflection again? That's not vanity, it's vitality, and vitality is the essence of aging well. Richard's journey also showed me another important truth. Change doesn't happen in isolation. His wife supported him every step of the way. She started preparing meals with him, walking with him, and even joined him in cutting back on sweets. Together, they became a team. And I believe every one of us needs that kind of encouragement. So if you're watching this and thinking, "I can't do it alone," remember, you don't have to. Invite a spouse, a friend, even a grandchild to join you in making healthier choices. Support makes success easier and more joyful. By the time Richard hit 6 months, he said something that nearly brought me to tears. "Doc, I thought I was winding down, but now I feel like I'm gearing up again." Imagine that. A man who once thought his story was closing, realizing he had whole new chapters ahead. That's what I want for you. That's why I sit here sharing not just medical advice, but real life stories. Because you deserve to know it's possible. And here's the secret no one tells you. Avoiding the wrong foods is often more powerful than adding anything new. Supplements have their place. Exercise is important. Rest is crucial. But if you're still feeding your body those 3 aging foods, it's like planting roses in poisoned soil. They won't thrive. Richard stopped poisoning his soil, and suddenly life bloomed again. So, as you think about Tom Cruise, at 62, looking 35, don't dismiss it as unreachable. Take it as a reminder that choices matter. Richard didn't have Hollywood trainers or fancy treatments. He had knowledge, discipline, and the desire to feel alive again. And if he could do it, you can too.
By the time Richard reached his 1-year checkup with me, the transformation was undeniable. He walked into my office not just as a man who looked younger, but as someone who radiated life. His skin had a healthier glow, his belly was smaller, his energy steady, and his smile wider than I had ever seen it. His wife, always by his side, said softly, "Doctor, he's like the man I married 40 years ago. I never thought I'd see this again." And in that moment, I realized once more why I've dedicated my life to this work. Because stories like Richard's prove that aging gracefully isn't a dream, it's a choice. And it's a choice available to every one of us. This brings us back to video topic. Tom Cruise at 62 may look 35, but what matters most isn't the Hollywood lifestyle or fame, it's the principle. He avoids the foods that silently steal youth, and so did Richard. Both men, in very different worlds, show us that vitality is possible when we remove what drags us down. Richard's story is a living, breathing example that you and I can follow, regardless of whether we ever step onto a movie set. Now, let me tell you about the ripple effects. Richard's improved health didn't stop at his own reflection. His marriage deepened because he and his wife began taking daily walks together, sharing meals and laughing more. His children felt inspired and even joined him in eating better. His grandchildren delighted in his newfound energy, asking him to play, to chase, to join them in the yard, things he once thought were behind him. That's the real power of avoiding the foods that age you. It isn't only about years on a calendar, it's about moments you get to fully live. And this is what I want you to hear from me today. Aging does not mean surrendering. It does not mean accepting that aches, fatigue, and decline are simply your lot in life. Aging is an invitation to care more deeply for the body and spirit that have carried you this far. And the sooner you stop feeding the habits that take more than they give, the sooner your body will begin to thank you, with energy, with clarity, with joy. Let me ask you directly, from one human being to another, what would you do if you had just a little more strength tomorrow? Would you take a longer walk? Would you pick up a forgotten hobby? Would you surprise your grandchildren by keeping up with their games? These are not small things. They're life itself. And you have the power to choose them. If this resonates with you, please type yes in the comments. If you're still not sure, type no. Both matter to me, because I read everyone, and your honesty helps me guide you better in these conversations. And please, if you haven't yet, press like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss these weekly talks. Together, we're building a community where aging is not feared, but embraced with wisdom and vitality. Now, let's return to that first moment Richard shared with me when he said he felt like life was slipping out of his hands. Compare that to the man who, 1 year later, stood tall and declared, "I feel like I'm just getting started again." That's not just a patience story, that's a roadmap. It shows us that transformation doesn't require perfection, only persistence. It shows us that no matter your age, change is possible, and the rewards are sweeter than you imagine. Tom Cruise may be a symbol of what's possible, but the real proof comes from people like Richard, from people like you. Ordinary men and women who decide not to settle, who choose to stop feeding their bodies the foods that age them, and who discovered that age can bring renewal instead of decline. And that choice is waiting for you, right now. So here is my warm encouragement to you. Start where you are. Look at your plate. Ask yourself gently, what here is giving me life, and what here is taking it away? And then with kindness toward yourself, begin to let go of what no longer serves you. One step, one day at a time. Because when you do, you may just look in the mirror and smile at the reflection staring back, not because it looks decades younger, but because it feels alive again. And this is the heart of this message. Aging is not about chasing youth. It's about embracing vitality. It's about having the energy to love more, to laugh more, to live more. And just like Richard discovered, just like Tom Cruise demonstrates, you too can choose to avoid the foods that age you, and in doing so, step into a brighter, stronger, more vibrant chapter of life. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I'm Dr. Nolan Easton, and it's been my honor to walk through this conversation with you. Remember, aging is not the end of the story. It's the chance to write your best chapters yet. And as you move forward, may you do so with hope in your heart, strength in your body, and joy in your spirit. Until next time, take care of yourself, and never stop believing that the best is still to come.